Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Russell Van Brocklen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Are you Dutch?
Yes. Are you familiar with did you follow football that much?
I depends. I mean, when I was growing up, I was born in the '70s and the '80s. I watched football more than I do now.
A
What
bit
do you?
further back, there was a famous quarterback called Norm Van Brocklen, otherwise
Oh,
known as
okay.
the Dutchman. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a very, very distant cousin, but I have none of his
Okay.
football ability.
Awesome. I asked that because my last name is De Vries, which is Dutch, and we had a lot of people with not Van Brocklen, but with different Van names. So I'm like, that he might be Dutch.
Yeah.
Awesome. Why don't you just start us off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm severely dyslexic. I got into doing what I do because when I entered in the late 90s, I wanted to figure out how government works. So I did the New York State Assembly internship program
Okay.
and I went in with a first grade reading and writing level. Problem is, they just looked at this and said, this isn't going to work with that first grade reading and writing level. So they put me in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office, which ran the assembly day to day, and there are three administrative assistants. So it worked out great. And for my big research report, instead of doing a paper, the standard accommodation for me back then was to write a research paper. I'm sorry, was to give an oral presentation
Okay.
instead of a research paper. Very long. It went on for a very long time, a lot of tough Q&A. And at the end, they recommended 3.67 or an A minus for 15 credits. Well, the State University of New York Center of Buffalo's political science department looked at this and said, we don't like these accommodations. Here's your 15 credits of F, which still stand today. All right. And I said, after that, no more. So I wanted to solve reading and writing for everybody. So I decided to go into the hardest place imaginable that would force me to overcome it. I audited two law school classes, one in property, one in contracts. And within a semester, I solved my reading, and within a few years, I solved my writing issues. At that point, I said, for people that were like me, I wanted to solve this. And I went back to the New York State government, and through a couple of years of prep work, they ended up funding my research. And what we did is it simply came down to this. This is the top book in my field. Okay.
Yep.
This Sally Shaywitz from, excuse me, Sally Shaywitz from Yale University. So here's dyslexia. Basically,
Yep.
what you see is the back part of the dyslexic brain has almost no neural activity. The gen ed brain is going crazy. The front part of the dyslexic brain is 2.5 times overactive.
Mhm.
So what I did is I focused on the front part of the brain. Now, according to Yale, that's two areas. It's word analysis. I'm sorry, it's articulation followed by word analysis. So I decided to use the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment because uh, remember that's analytical articulation. See how they go
Yep.
together?
Yep.
So we took a bunch of highly motivated, highly intelligent, college bound dyslexic students, juniors and seniors with excellent family support, one class period a day for the school year. They increased their writing from the middle school level to average range of entering graduate school students. Their GPAs in college were 2.5 to 3.6, no accommodations. They all went on and they graduated with those GPAs, no additional assistance. Cost New York State less than $900 a kid. I presented this at the New York City in 2006 at the International Dyslexia Association Manhattan branch. And I thought I did something amazing. I thought I was done. I was wrong. What the teachers said is they said, what about everybody else? How do you work with all these other children who are dyslexic, not just the super motivated ones?
Mhm.
It's like, okay. So what we had to do is to make a few changes. Number one, I had to go back to that overactive front part of the brain And instead of articulation followed by almost no word analysis in the original course, we swapped it over to word analysis followed by articulation. Now, I want you to think, have you ever came across a dyslexic child in elementary school who's writing essentially a lot of randomly placed misspelled words? Does that sound familiar to you at all?
And personally, I have not come across that, but I mean, I've worked with some parents where their kids do have dyslexia.
Okay. And literally in elementary school, where the big complaint I get from parents and teachers is the kid is literally writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words. They
Okay,
just don't even know where to start.
sure,
I'm going to show you how to fix this in just a few minutes.
sure.
So I'm just going to give you a student that I like to use as an example. Her name is Sarah. She's in elementary school, loves swimming. It's her favorite thing to do in the world. She
Mhm.
does it every chance she can get. So what we have the parents do is we have them type out the following. They're always typing. They're not handwriting. They're not. They're typing, and they're not using an iPad or an iPhone. It's a real keyboard. So they type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? Sarah copies it. Then we switch it around. We switch hero to Sarah. Replace it. Sarah plus sign. What are we talking about? We switch. What are we talking about for swimming? Sarah plus sign swimming. See how we got there?
Mhm.
Now, here's my question. We need to add a third word to have a grammatically correct 3-word sentence. When I explain this to teachers at major dyslexia conferences, most of them get it wrong because they don't follow my instructions exactly. It's very simple. So, do you think I'm going to be able to fool you?
Probably, maybe.
Okay, let's see here. Remember, swimming is Sarah's favorite thing in the world.
Right.
Sarah plus sign swimming. We need to replace the plus sign. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
He likes swimming.
Okay, go ahead and use her proper first name and what you just said. And what is the 3-word sentence?
Sarah likes swimming.
Yes, but that's not what I asked. I asked, does
Aren't
Sarah
you asked?
like or dislike swimming? As an educated person, you automatically added the S to likes and put it in
Oh,
the sentence. Sarah doesn't know how to do that.
gotcha, gotcha.
So, how do we get Sarah to add the S? Now, if you're going to use what the super wealthy use, they use an Orton Gillingham multi century structured language approach. Been
Yeah,
around for decades. All right. Uh, Dr. Orton passed away in 48. Gillingham passed away, I think, sometime in the 50s. This is what all the top dyslexic private schools use in the Northeast.
yep.
All right. The idea is you see it, touch it, hear it. Very complicated. Takes parents, if you're college educated, takes 2 years and $11,000 to get certified. I'm going to show you how to do this real fast now. We
Okay.
needed a better way. My assumption is that Sarah speaks proper English. That's the one assumption I have to make. So what I would do is I would ask Sarah, do you like or dislike swimming? And she would answer exactly what I asked, like. I said, replace the plus sign. Sarah likes swimming. Now, how do we get her to add the S instead of using all these multi-sensory approach? I asked Sarah to read what she wrote out loud. Does that sound generally correct? And she would say no. I would say fix it. Sarah likes swimming. Okay. Now, do you see how that's a form of word analysis?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we need to add articulation. So then because Sarah likes swimming because, and the reasons are articulation. Like and dislike is a very simple form of word analysis. The reasons are articulation. I keep coming back to the overactive part of the dyslexic brain. All right. So let's say she says Sarah likes swimming because it's fun, but she has massive spelling issues. So here's how we get the spelling and grammar to self-correct. In that original program I did, this teacher, Susan Ford, spent almost no time on spelling and grammar. It self-corrected. Here's how we
Mm.
transfer this over to younger kids. We tell Sarah before she puts the period down, she can go ahead and ask any question. But once she drops the period, if she makes a spelling mistake or grammar mistake, she has to rewrite the entire sentence. Before she puts the period down, she just has to correct that word.
Mm.
So let's say she says, for example, did I spell fun correctly? And before the period, you could say no and retype it and she can copy it. But if she put the period down, and most of these kids are period droppers, she has to retype the entire sentence. So let's say she put the period down. Then we say, Sarah, there are two words that I use, two examples of how not to offend her, but let her know that you made an error. Sarah, you made a silly mistake, or you made a silly error. Okay. And now, because you put the period down, what does that mean? I got to retype the entire sentence. So she focuses and she said, I'm not going to make that mistake. But she makes it. She's making the same mistakes over and over again. How do we get this to correct? Sarah, you made another silly mistake, another silly error. I'm going to really concentrate and not do it. Well, usually between 3 and 12 times is what it takes. And each time she gets more and more annoyed with herself. So she really starts concentrating. And for the kids that have a severe case of dyslexia, they get down to like 10 or 12. They are concentrating so much sometimes you see sweat coming down their forehead. Okay, so with Sarah, now what we do is as she goes through it, let's say she finally gets it correct at like time number 11. All right, then we repeat that with 10 likes and 10 dislikes until it's perfect. Sarah likes swimming, likes and dislikes for 20 times. Then we add reason 1. She does it 20 times until it's perfect. Reason 1 and reason 2, and then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Now, here's what's different about my approach compared to Orton Gillingham. The older the child is, the quicker they will pick it up. Exactly the opposite of Orton Gillingham. So for 5th graders, you might be on this for a couple of weeks. For 2nd graders, you might be on this for a couple of months. But what I just showed you is how to take a dyslexic kid from writing at like the kindergarten level to the end of 2nd, beginning 3rd grade level.
It's awesome.
Okay. Well, now that's step number 3. Parents come to me all the time and say, well, my kid won't do the work. I said, exactly, because you're outside their speciality. What is their speciality? So what you do is you ask them. It's a Saturday morning. You can do whatever you want anytime. What do you do? That's their area of extreme interest and ability. The most popular one when I do this privately is this monster. All 1,000 pages of Disney's biography. And yes, I give this to 10-year-olds. So to give you an example, have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
I have not.
Okay. Can you imagine children going, they walk into Main Street USA and they feel the Disney magic?
Yep.
The Disney magic is based on Walt's time in Marceline, Missouri between age 5 and 10. And he spent his entire life trying to recreate and give it to others. It's 2 universal themes. The first one's easy to find and to discuss. But the second one has 90% of the value. I've never had a parent find it. To give you an example, I started working with one girl when she was 10. At age 12, she was finally ready to say what the second universal theme is. And her mom has a master's degree. She can't find it. I said, well, I'm going to have your 12-year-old daughter tell you what it is. And as 12-year-old girls will say, she goes, Mom, here it is. Her mother was shocked. She said, I read this so many times, I can't believe I missed it. I said, well, your 12-year-old daughter can now comprehend better than you can. This is an example. Notice it was 2 years later. She's dealing with this 1,000-page book, and she was reading at the 2nd grade level when I gave this to her. The kids will do their work if it's in their speciality. Okay, so you find out what they want to do on that Saturday morning the way that I said. You get an audio book, and then you get that they also like the narrator, then you get a printed book. Most kids that age will start off with Harry Potter or something similar. Then you go to an intermediate book, then you go to that monster. The Walt Disney book. For my most motivated kids, I just start off with Walt Disney or something similar. But then we come up, that's the first part of the model. Focus on the kid's speciality. Next, when we're dealing with, this is the other thing that I found really important talking to top dyslexic professors. When I would go in and interview them, I found that I was dealing with a lot of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And they would tell me in undergrad, they would take philosophy, art, history. I said, well, good for you. And some of them would say, well, I didn't like the classes. I was like, why are you taking it? And they would come back to me and say, because the teacher didn't teach from the general to the specific, but from the specific to the general. This is critical to understand, because if you ask a dyslexic student, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have in the 1960 civil rights movement? They will tell you about nothing, because it's like asking them to grab, it's like trying to grab fog. It just, there's nothing there. So then what you do is you ask a specific to a general question. What personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous I Have a Dream speech? You can go and look in his biography, find the answer, and then the next question presents itself from there, and it forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So again, it forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So here's how to bring all this together. You ask a student you think is dyslexic. This works for ADD, ADHD, and dyslexics. In your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. And then what we do is we tell them we're going to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. They're like, okay. So the thing is you have to deal with their speciality, number one, teach the specific to the general, then it's word analysis followed by articulation. What do the schools districts do? They don't teach in your speciality. They try to give you they try to make you well-rounded. Now, for motivated kids, you're down by 50% motivation. For normal kids, you're down to up to 80%. So then they teach general to the specific. We have nothing to latch onto. And they certainly don't do word analysis followed by articulation. And you wonder why we have trouble in school where they tell us that we're learning disabled.
So are you suggesting that all schools should switch to like how you're teaching? Would that help everybody? I mean, it
Oh, it
seems like it would help
would.
everybody, right?
Yeah, it generally helps. I teach a lot of these kids that I work with. They have older brothers and sisters who are fighting to become valedictorians. And the sequence that I use, the other thing, when I presented in New York City, I had top professors who came over to me and they said, some of your students scored in the 70th percentile of undergraduate students in high school. We don't care. We want the craft of research. Are you familiar with the book?
No.
It came out in 1995 because PhD students at the University of Chicago don't know how to write advanced research papers. It's context, problem, solution. And the solution is something where you develop something truly original or don't write the paper.
Sure.
So what I've done is I dropped context to elementary school, 4th and 5th grade. I dropped problem to middle school and solution to high school. All right. And just to show you how powerful this is and why it's relevant to today, I had a student last year who graduated, hated AI, couldn't stand it, wanted nothing to do with it. But his boss loved it. His idea was, I'm not going to allow you to spend so much more time to get to a first draft when you can use AI to get it quicker. And by the way, when you hand in your work, I want something original that we can use. Freak the students out because they weren't used to it. So he comes, he contacts me. I said, you've been trained in the craft of research. You will do fine. Go to the AI, talk to it, type with it, figure out how to get the context, which is to get everybody on the same page. He comes back, I did it. So go do the problem. He comes back, I hate this. I said, welcome to the adult world. So then I said, go do the conclusion. Go do the solution. You know how to do it. Just, you're an adult now. Go do it. So he does it. He turns in his assignment. His boss is going through, I can't use this. I can't use this. Comes to his excellent idea. We can use this. Within a week after that, he was training other employees how to use AI because he's like, I just use the craft of research. I played around with it. This is what works. This is how I walked it through. And he's like, what? I don't like this thing, but I'm training people in it. I said, yes, there is an advantage of being dyslexic. I trained you in how to do these steps because I knew it was going to happen someday. I didn't know it was going to be this big. All right. Literally, the CEO of Anthropic said in the next 5 years, half of college graduates are going to be unemployed. Those of it who can, those who know craft of research, basically what we're showing you here is not how to be prompt engineers per any model. We're showing you how to prompt engineer your brain. All right. So you can guide it, you can work with it, even if you know nothing about it, if you apply the craft of research process that I just happened to make a lot more efficient for dyslexic students. If you're on the right side of AI, you're going to make a lot more money, be a lot more productive. If you're on the other side, well, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. Thank you for all that. Let's go. What is your definition of inclusion?
My definition of inclusion is to stop taking dyslexic students, like when I was a child, and throwing us off into special education because we can't function in the normal classroom. I hear that all the time. So what I focus on is how to not only bring a dyslexic child to grade level in what I call an intervention period, but past grade level, well above. To give you an example, my most successful case, her name was Casey. This was a book she was interested in, all 900 pages of Theodore Roosevelt, 10th grade to first year college level. She was end of 5th grade, reading at a 2nd grade level. Within 6 months, I will never see it this fast again. She knew every word in that book. She was reading at the 10th grade level, spent hours a night on her own, almost the entire day during the summer for 6 months. And she knew every word. Normally that takes at least a year, normally 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So we get the kids way above where they're supposed to be, and then they have to walk down the mountain to fill in things instead of crawling up. And then they can function well in a typical classroom.
Yeah. So do you just feel like the teachers aren't equipped with the correct tools to, help kids with dyslexia? I mean, what do they learn
Yeah.
anything about dyslexia in college? I guess I'm not sure.
They learn things, but they're so based on Dr. Orton's original work. He's
Okay.
the Einstein, the Copernicus, the Newton, all rolled up and for things in dyslexia. He passed away in 1948. So I'm again just coming back to the science. This came out in 2003. All right. And here's my strange idea. Forget about the back part of the brain where we have just almost nothing going on. The front part's 2.5 times overactive. Weird idea. Let's use that. But
Right.
instead of articulation followed by word analysis, it's word analysis followed by articulation. But to work with most students, we have to put in their speciality in front and then teach from the specific to the general to make it work.
Right. So when you say speciality, I mean, I'm assuming, is that just like if the kid likes dinosaurs or trains or something, that's what you work with, or what do you
Yep,
mean? Okay.
that is literally what we work with. So I had kids who loved trains. So, and the kid was particularly motivated. So we started off with some basic books to get, just to get them to write a basic 5-paragraph essay. And then I moved on to the golden age. Actually, he was really interested. He said, I want to know how this actually happened in real life. So I gave him the founder of the train development. I forget the gentleman's the exact name. The book was named The First Tycoon. And he was the wealthiest man in the world by the time he passed away.
Okay.
All right. Controlled the New York Central, and this brought his reading and writing level up to the college level.
Right. Yep. That's great. So how do you, I mean, have you been, I mean, I've helped, families with, IEPs and going to meetings and that sort of thing. And part of this frustration also, I'm a parent, my daughter had an IEP, and if you figure out something as a parent that works for your child, or like I'm having my child work with you to help with the reading and that part of it, and then sometimes getting the school to come on board with that, or use similar tactics so we're not fighting against each other. I mean, what's your experience been with parent brings a student to you, you are going down this path, have you been able to work with schools to help them at least not make it worse, like, or how does that go for you?
I've been training special ed teachers in New York City how to do this for the past 10
Okay.
years. I
Gotcha.
taught the major. I taught almost a central person in the state, almost every public school in the state of New Jersey. Typically, what you're going to find is when you're dealing with this, the parents desperately want to find a solution.
Yep.
So what I just tell them is it's just easier to do it yourself.
Mhm.
The main thing that I do is I train parents to teach their kids how to go through this process. And I've trained 14-year-old AP English girls how to do it. It's very simple.
Sure.
The schools, the teachers want to do this. And when they're left alone and
Right.
to come up with their own devices, to give you an example, I had a teacher that I taught in New Jersey, and she's at a major conference there. She said, I kept in contact with her and it worked. She had 3 hours a week with a student, and they started using YouTube videos that he liked.
Sure.
I never thought of YouTube videos. Within 18 months, she got him from third grade level to grade level, and she was happy with that.
Right.
They let her be. For most teachers, the administration gets in the way because they have very set things they're supposed to do. Remember, they teach
Yep.
from the general to the specific,
Yep.
and they have to get through all these books, which is the exact opposite. So, one thing that we try to recommend, if you want to follow the approach we have, is break the class into 2 or 3 groups and have them select some books that they may not be in their exact speciality, but what they're generally interested in.
Sure.
Something that
Yeah.
everybody, 2 or 3 books that people can at least be somewhat interested in. That's from Evelyn Whitebay, who's a special ed teacher who's on the New York State Dyslexia Task Force, and I work with her to go to school districts.
Sure.
And what I really just have to try to tell them is, listen, we need to step back for an intervention period. We need to close the gap, and then the dyslexic student will be able to function with some difficulty, but function in your typical classroom. But the school boards don't want to do the intervention. They don't want to focus for that time just on, like
Yeah.
Disney's biography.
Yeah.
And then the teachers will say, well, the kid's not doing the work. I said, yes, because it's a typical student and you're outside their speciality. Let me give you an example. Have you ever watched a movie called Fast and Furious, the first one?
Yes.
Do you remember the scene where Paul Walker brings in this junk car? They're redesigning it, and he says, "You're amazing. How come you're not at MIT?" And the kid said, "I can do this really good. I can't do the other stuff."
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yep.
Yeah. So here's the big thing. I said for most kids in elementary school, it's Harry Potter. I'm just going to give you an example for girls because they're much more direct. They almost always select Hermione as their hero because they said Hermione's not stupid. I don't want to be stupid anymore. It's very painful to hear. And then they will go and they will work incredibly hard to read Harry Potter. Now, they can read and write on Harry Potter. I think there's a pretty good chance you're going to find, we get them to do a basic 5-paragraph essay working with the teachers. I think you'll find that they'll pass the state assessment. Okay. But the schools want them to go through all these other books because it's designed for typical students.
Right.
And again, I'm going to come back to the science, the brain images. My brain and your brain are completely opposite.
Right.
The system is designed for you.
Right.
It's not designed for me. So
Absolutely.
we can make some alterations, and then the kids will do the work.
Right.
And a lot of times when I'm dealing with IEPs, and sometimes parents are literally threatening to go to federal court because they didn't diagnose the kid in kindergarten, beginning of first grade. Once they don't do that and they don't do any intervention until fourth grade, federal judges have called them, and I'm using the exact quote here, grossly negligent. And what's left? These $75,000 a year private schools. And they force the schools to pay for it, but the school districts to pay. But the parents, even if they got everything they want, they don't like sending their kids off to boarding school. So then my question to teachers is it really that much to ask to have the students pick an advanced book and then just to stick with it until they can read? So, for example, I've had to go into IEP meetings where the kid has selected this book.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting off with 3,500 words on Marceline, Missouri. and that's 11th grade material. Maybe that section is ninth grade, but whatever. These are fifth graders,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep them on that until they can read it, and it takes several months, and then the next part gets easier. Once they're done with the first 4 or 5 chapters, they're reading. And I said, so it takes 18 months or 2 years. Now the kids start in 5th grade. Now they're in beginning 7th, and they're reading at the 11th grade level. Okay. But the school comes back to me and says, but it's just one book. We're supposed to cover X, Y, and Z. I said, you have a choice. You messed up by not doing things in kindergarten through 3rd grade. All you had to do was to contact the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creative Studies. They will tell you how to diagnose dyslexia in kindergarten for a very low price.
Right.
Every school district can afford it. And then you have interventions that are scientifically proven that so if you apply that, by the end of 3rd grade, they're at reading level or close to it.
Right.
You didn't do that. So now they can either focus on a book they're really interested in until we bring their reading level at grade level or above, or go have fun in the federal courts and sending them to a private Orton-based school.
Right.
That's really
Yeah.
what the choices are.
Right.
And a lot of times the parents just throw up their hands and say, can I do this myself? And I said, yes. To give you an example, Kimberly gave me full permission to discuss her son, Reed.
Sure.
Started working with him end of December of last year. He was reading and writing at the beginning 3rd grade level. He's in 5th grade. Took 5 months for her to have independent verification that he's now reading at grade level. All right. And she was working with him typically 2-3 times a week, 25 minutes a session, typically.
Mm-hmm.
As they get into this, a lot of the times the students are doing most of it on their own. Now he's working on middle school, advanced middle school paragraphs. And he's now 8 months in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is mom doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. This is all very informative. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Focus on the kid's speciality. Ask them that Saturday morning question. Find out what it is. Find an audio book that they're really interested in, that they like the narrator. Why? You find the audio book, you can almost always find the printed book.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work the other way around very much. Get that, get them started. And you will find that they will be much more willing to learn. But just remember, this is how our brains are designed.
Yep.
And it works very well for ADD, ADHD kids as well. And by the way, Gen Ed kids can go through this process. They just they go through it much faster. The ADD and ADHD kids go much deeper. The dyslexic kids go much deeper than even that.
What's your specialty? Is it dyslexia or is there something else?
Oh, my specialty is history.
Okay.
I forced my way out of special education in history in 8th grade, and I got hundreds on every test. I didn't study for any of them because I couldn't. I just remembered what the teacher said, and I got hundreds on every test.
What kind of history? Any history, or is there a specific niche that you like about
specifically, history? I'm into American history and European history and Asian history, especially post-war Japanese history. And I would find that most of the time when I'm dealing with highly motivated dyslexic kids, we're using his biographies of historical figures. You know, like for example, I had one African American student who was very interested in Martin Luther King, a young lady, and I don't teach young ladies Martin Luther King because his personal life has some issues that cause me concern. And I would say, no, let's go and do something far worse than America. Let's go and do biography of Nelson Mandela. You want to talk about real racism? This is far worse than anything that happened in the United States, which is horrible of our history with African American history. Look at what Mandela did. And that's a nice 1,000+ page biography.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was done, she had a much better understanding of what the real drastic history, what he changed. And she ended up going and becoming a civil rights attorney.
Yeah. It's interesting. Is there anything you want to share that we haven't discussed? Maybe just talk a little bit about what your programs you have or how people can connect with you?
Well, the easiest thing to connect with me um, is to just go to dyslexiaclasses.com. And
Okay.
that's plural, dyslexiaclasses.com. And we offer a free book, The Three Reasons Your Child's Having Trouble in School Due to Dyslexia and How to Get Past It. And you
Hmm.
just go and there's a button there that says download the free book.
Sure.
All right. So you
Awesome.
just click on that, fill out the short form, and then we give you a 30-minute discussion with me and your child. I ask them the questions that we discussed today, and they look at me, we're like, how did you know that about me? I said, "You don't think anybody else has had this before?" We discuss things in general. We select a book that they're interested in, an audio book. Then I asked them, is this how you'd like to overcome things? And vast majority of time, it's yes. If it's no, I'm not your person. If it's
Yep.
yes, then I simply show parents how we work with them for a year at a time.
Hmm.
All right, we meet with them every week for a webinar to answer their questions, and they got a year to work with us. And they're going.
Hmm.
If they do that, they should see a tremendous improvement. And we
Awesome.
price things so it's affordable for families.
That's great. Is this available for anybody in any state, or do you have to be in New York?
No, no, it's
Okay.
we worked with parents from around the world.
Awesome.
So
That's
I'm
cool.
just giving an example of New York State
Yep.
because we spend more than anybody, and we just basically came up with two reasons to build it and pass. We can't afford it, and the teacher said you can't keep piling this on. You gave us all this other stuff recently. We need some
Right.
time to breathe, but
Yeah.
we need the resources to do this, and you just can't give us another unfunded mandate.
Gotcha. Ready for the last question?
Sure.
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
No.
No. That was fast.
Yeah, I kind of my father was a Marine, and he
Okay.
tried to give that to us. And he had the ability of when we were growing up, we did a lot of camping. He would
Sure.
take the cheapest chuck steak and make it taste
Okay.
better than the steak you get in restaurants.
Gotcha. Yeah, I asked that question because I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam and where the spam museum is located. So I just been popping that question. Everybody used to see reactions. It's usually like what you did, pretty fast, yes or no. That's usually what happens.
Yeah,
Not a,
I try to stay away from the canned process stuff. I like to go to I mean, honestly, I'm kind of cheap when it comes to because food prices have gotten so expensive. I
yep,
go down and Hannaford's my local store, and they'll have big sales on meat every week. And if it's
sure,
something I like, I'll get a lot of packages, divide
yep,
them up into individual portions, put them in the freezer bags, and put them in the freezer.
yep, yeah. That makes sense.
Because
Yeah,
otherwise, I don't know how people. I just don't know
right.
how people afford to eat nowadays.
Yeah, we do the same thing. I mean, we have a grocery store that has like the best sales on meat. So yeah, if there's stuff on sale, we watch it, grab a bunch, throw it in the freezer, and then take it out. So that's. I mean, I think you have to do that now. So for
Yeah,
sure.
I thinking $5 a pound is a good price.
Oh. Yeah, I know I'm getting old because everything is like, man, I remember when that was this price, and I remember when that was this price. I'm like, hey, I think I'm getting old. I'm sounding like
No,
those.
it's just happened every there. My first degree in college was economics. The
Okay.
real inflation from the pandemic was 47%.
Oh,
Yeah, so just what I like to do is I like to look at like what's the apartment rentals like,
yeah,
or if
that's
you want
crazy.
what I
Sure,
think is the most accurate, look at the price of gold.
sure. Yeah,
Okay. And it used to be like 21.50 an ounce or something back around 1915, and now it's over $3,300 an ounce. To me, that's a really good inflection of
that's
what the
crazy. Yeah,
actual inflation is.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciated it.
Absolutely. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.